Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're listening to us from in the world. My name is Anne Wawero, and I would like to welcome you all to the webinar by MUKES Finland. The name of the webinar is 50 Shades of Memory Work. Please make sure that your microphone and your camera is off in order for us to ensure that we have a great and smooth meeting so that we can all hear each other. And also note that this presentation is being recorded, and we will also be taking pictures at certain points of the meeting. So if you have any wish to remain anonymous, please change your settings so that you change your settings to anonymous so that you do not, your name or face is not recognized. If you have any questions for any of the speakers, please ask this in the chat. We will try our best to answer the questions during the meeting. If not, then MUKES is going to make sure that we will answer those questions later on. And all these resources, this presentation plus all the related resources will be available on the MUKES website. So we look forward to having a great session this afternoon or this morning. And first up, we are going to have Siri Jackson, who is the who works with the Finnish Center for Cultural Diversity and Memory. So Siri, please go ahead and tell us what you have prepared for us today.
Thank you, Anne. First of all, my technical abilities are limited, so we have to continue from here like this. But first of all, on the behalf of the Finnish Center of Cultural Diversity and Memory, MUKES, I would like to thank all our guest speakers, thanks to whom we could put together a great and fascinating package of knowledge that we can proudly share with all of you. So I also want to thank the organizing committee and our background team who made this event possible. So yeah, my name is Siri Jackson, and I'm a co-founder and CEO of MUKES, and I'm also Estonian, and I have lived in Finland since 2010. So that makes me also a foreign-born older person who is the important part of this webinar today. MUKES was founded and has been operating since 2020. And we are the only NGO in Finland that promotes sensitive memory work. And the first pilot project with Russian and Estonian speaking speakers started in 2003. In 2004, a memory counseling center was opened in Helsinki. And since 2015, this work has been taken forward by the 6 years ETNIMO project, which did grow, and now we are continuing as MUKES. We support social and healthcare professionals and students by raising awareness of sensitive memory work. We also raise the awareness of the elderly from ethnic minorities about brain health, memory disorders, and loneliness. So I will shortly present the background of the sensitive memory work in Finland. As everywhere else in the world, the number of older migrants in Finland is growing constantly. Many people who migrated to Europe in 60s or to 80s are reaching an age when the risk of developing dementia is higher. The structure of Finnish migrants is affected by the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, when the people from countries for the former Soviet Union became international migrants. That makes Russian and Estonian-speaking people the largest migrant group in Finland. The personal situation and starting point of the people belonging to these language groups is slightly different compared to the people migrating from outside of Europe. For example, the level of education can be quite high in those groups, but everything else related to knowledge about dementia or taboos, they are similar. In our work, we have met people from Russia, Estonia, Chinese, Arabic, and Somali-speaking groups. And also one of our target groups, the Roma people, which is an ethnic minority in Finland who speak Finnish, but 60% of the elderly in that group are illiterate. So I will stop here. You should take a cup of coffee and enjoy the day with the great presentations from all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Siri. So next up, we have Dr. Alexandra Withnall. Dr. Alexandra is an honorary associate professor at the Center for Lifelong Learning at the University of Warwick in the UK. So let's welcome Dr. Alex.
Good morning from the UK, where it's very cold and snowy, but thank you for inviting me to speak. I used to be an associate professor at the University of Warwick, but I retired 15 years ago, since when I've tried to keep fairly active, because I'm now 80 years old. My main research interest has always been in learning in later life, and this webinar seemed very relevant to some of the things I've been researching. So what I'd like to do just for the next few minutes is to just discuss some concepts and ideas as a foundation for our later discussions. So I started off by thinking, what does generation mean? And the oldest and most basic explanation I could find is from 1928. A group of people who experienced similar events in their youth during a distinct period of time. But I've also discovered that this has been widely debated and criticised over the years, particularly because it focuses on Western youth. But in spite of that, it has been widely adopted in all sorts of areas. So I then looked at, you may be familiar with these. These ideas came from the United States Bureau of the Census, that certain generations born at a certain time have certain things in common. So I'd like to ask you, which generation are you? I should say there's also one called the Greatest Generation, who were born before 1928, mostly people who lived through the First World War. But of course, there aren't many of them left now. The group that's coming into later life, I suppose now, is the baby boomers, who we hear a lot of. And then there's other ideas, Generation X, Millennials, Generation Z, and Generation Alpha. So I was born during the Second World War, so I'm probably part of the silent generation. But do you think these terms are at all helpful? I've just been reading a book by a professor at London University, Bobby Duffy, talking about generations, and he thinks that these are just tired stereotypes, and that there's far more there are far more differences between people born in the same eras, and this is just a very lazy way of categorizing people, and perhaps it's not really very helpful to think in these terms, but you can probably locate yourself among them. So then I started to think, what is intergenerationality? And the most simple explanation I could find was that it's interactions between members of different generations. This might be in family relationships. We know that now often there are 4 generations or even 5 generations of a family alive. I have 4 grandsons myself. Other people I know have great-grandsons as well. So family relationships is the most usual place where people interact with each other. But it can be in community development. Perhaps it's in relation to financial and other resources. And of course, it's in education and learning, as we've seen through the work that's going on through the work in Finland. So I also looked for a definition of what we mean by intergenerational practice. And there are lots of different definitions from different countries. The one I like most comes from the Beth Johnson Foundation in the UK. Beth Johnson Foundation is a charity situated in the North Midlands of England, which does a lot of community work with older people in that particular area. I hope you can read this. And I thought it was a really nice explanation of what we're trying to do. Don't know why I have a red line down it.
You might be drawing.
Well, I hope.
You can change the slide, or I will put on your slides.
I don't know where that red line's come from, sorry. But still, thank you. So what's the basis for intergenerational programs? These are the ideas I had about it, that we assume that learning is a lifelong process, and whatever older people's state or where they're living or what they're doing, learning, they can still learn, even if they have dementia or some other illness. But we know that people have different learning needs at different stages of their lives, and other generations might well be able to help them to meet these needs. So whether they're children, middle-aged people, older people, other generations can doubtless help them. But another issue to take into account, of course, is we know we change as we get older. So how do the processes of aging affect our ability to participate in intergenerational activities? The main issue, I think, is we know that people change both biologically and psychologically as they grow older. So people of the same generation might be quite different from each other. As I said, people become more different. It looks as though cognitive capability reaches a peak when people are about 45 years old and starts to decline with age in most people. I know I'm quite ashamed to say that although I can remember quite a lot of activities from my own things that happened in my childhood, I can't remember what I had for dinner yesterday. And I find that people of my age are more or less in the same boat. The time seems to go so quickly when you're older that you forget things very, very quickly, but you still retain memories of things that happened years and years ago, even when you're still quite cognitively sound. We know, of course, that physical and sensory changes vary between individuals. I said to people, oh, you don't look 80 and you don't look 60, you don't look 70, but what do those ages really look like? We know people vary so much. I am realizing that, like most people my age, I'm starting to get osteoarthritis and my knees are quite painful sometimes, and that is almost universal among people, I think. Forgetting, as I said, is quite a problem. People do worry that perhaps they're developing dementia, when in fact it's quite a normal aging change. Sensory changes, we know that eyesight starts to deteriorate in everybody from the age of about 40, although they may not notice it for a very long time. But by the time you're retired, you probably need to wear glasses. I found I can't see to drive in the dark very well anymore, and that's very common as well by the time you get to your later age. But sometimes these physical and sensory changes can affect cognitive abilities. But I think, talking to friends, that we probably worry more about it than is actually the case, because I've noticed my own younger daughters forgetting keys and not being able to remember where they put things, but they don't worry about it like I probably would. But we also know, of course, that as we get older, it's very important to maintain social relationships in order to keep our brains functioning well. And I'm sure, as we all know, during the lockdowns of the pandemic a few years ago, one of the problems that people of all ages really, but particularly older people living on their own, experienced was that they couldn't make contact with anybody. And it was, for some people, it was a very lonely time. So I think social relationships probably are one of the most important ways that we can maintain our brain health and our cognitive abilities. So what is dementia? Well, I think most of us know that it's a loss of cognitive function to the extent that thinking, remembering, reasoning being able to make decisions disappears, and so it tends to interfere with a person's daily life and their routines and their activities. And I know there are several different types of dementia, but I gather there's actually hundreds of different ones. The one we're probably most familiar with is Alzheimer's disease, which is such a sad thing because it robs a person of their personality eventually. And of course, we know there's no cure, although there are some promising developments on the market. What I think we have to remember that it's not part of normal aging. Normal aging involves forgetting things, slowing down a little bit, perhaps not being able to do the things you did when you were younger. But that is normal aging, it's not dementia. So let's get on to talking about the benefits of intergenerational activities for people, for migrants with dementia. Obviously, the first one is social interaction and reduced social isolation, which is good for all older people, but particularly for people who have dementia. Activities can stimulate the brain, even if brain cells are dying. It can offer emotional support to people, and it can offer them physical activity and mobility, because that is still important, even for people whose cognitive abilities are maybe in decline. We know that it can offer positive emotional experiences, that people don't feel so isolated and they can feel more confident. And above all, it can help to break stereotypes and myths. And I think that's probably one of the most important things that practitioners can concentrate on. What about cultural differences? That's obviously a big issue for you that work in the field. I think it's important that we learn about customs and traditions from the migrants' countries. The rather scary figure on the right, I was privileged a few years ago to go to Taiwan, and I learned a lot about the religions there. This is one of the gods we had to provide food for as a gift when we visited his statue. It was really interesting. And customs and traditions can be, of course, very different from those that we know in the West. Communication styles. These can be different. I learned that in some countries, if you nod your head, it actually means no and not yes, as we tend to use it in our countries. So we need to be careful about how we communicate with people. And we show them that we are friendly, but I think we need to learn more about their preferred styles of communication. And that leads me on to personal space and touch. I think we have etiquette, don't we, about how close up you stand to a person, and whether or not you can touch them. For some people it would be quite an affront. Other people would like a warm, friendly hug. So we have to learn a little bit about people's cultural norms in that respect. And in addition to that, social norms and etiquette. My little chart on the right is probably how we raise our children to say please and thank you, share things with others, raise their hands and so on. But are these always what other cultures do? We need to find out where these differences arise. And gender roles and expectations. Again, as we know, they're very different in different countries. Migrants may come from somewhere where the old are respected. They may come from somewhere where they're not. And we have expectations about what they'll do. So I know someone's going to speak about this a bit later. So I think it's really important that we understand gender roles and expectations about the roles of men and women in the countries that migrants come from. And of course, very important is really understanding other people's religious practices and beliefs. I'm sad to say that in my country at the moment, there's huge problems and controversies about immigrants coming into the country and us not understanding their needs and their practices and beliefs. So I think that is something we all need to be aware of. of other people's religious beliefs, practices, and how they wish to live out their lives through their religion. I think another one is attitudes towards aging and older people. This road sign, which I'm ashamed to say we still have in the UK, which shows elderly people, beware of elderly people, as sort of rather old and decrepit and bent over, rather than showing them as lively older people, as older people often are. So I'm afraid ageism is a huge problem probably throughout Europe and throughout the world. And I'm hoping that we can gradually work towards changing it and realizing that older people, whatever their state of mind, are valuable members of society. And then again, what are our attitudes towards children and young people? Certainly when I was a child, children were seen and not heard. But now, of course, certainly things have changed a lot. Children are seen as important. And I know that my daughters bring up my grandsons in a very different way from how they were brought up. So I think we need to think a lot about our attitudes towards children and young people and what they can offer society. So finally, I'd like to finish with some questions to think about. You may have thought about these already, but one thing that's occurred to me when I've been working with older people and looking at research projects, how do different generations make sense of and use the knowledge and skills and experience they possess and share them? What are the mechanisms that make it happen? And another question that came to me is, where does power reside in intergenerational relationships? Are the older people and the children equal? Do they have equal power? Does one generation have more power than the other? Who decides what's going to be discussed and what's going to work? And then what is the role of people, organisers, trainers, instructors? Where do they fit into the picture? Should they be directing the activities? Should they leave it to the younger people, or even the older people, to decide what kind of activities take place? And I'm sure some of you will answer that question for me as the day goes on. So that's all I have to say to start us off. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. So next up, we have Dr. Tiina Tambaum from Estonia. She's a lecturer on social gerontology in Haapsalu College and a researcher in the Institute on Population Studies at Tallinn University. Welcome, Tiina.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for the perfect introduction to the topic. And Alex is my academic mother, I can say. My topic here, thank you for inviting and the opportunity to present in front of such a large audience. My topic is, my message is that there is no instant intergenerational magic, which continues Alex's final points that we should know how to organize intergenerational practice. For my introduction, there are some recent publications. My doctoral thesis was about intergenerational learning, and you can also have a look to the Springer's handbook where the chapter intergenerational learning is published as well. And recently I have started to explore the participatory approach in aging society, in aging research, which is more or less also related to intergenerational practice. There are the list of articles my doctoral thesis is based on, all about intergenerational learning. But yes, the question how to make this magic available for our generations. I give some examples taken from this spring. There were students from the Estonian Entrepreneurship University of Applied Sciences, and on the subject project management, they needed to organize some real event to practice their project management skills. And one of them went to the nursing home, and they organized the concert, children's concert for older people. There is the quotation, there was sincere joy and gratitude in the eyes of all parties. So it seems that it was a successful intergenerational event. The other subgroup of the same university students went to Haapsalu. Haapsalu is the place where we teach community work in aging society, the master program. I am the head of this program. And the officer from the municipality called to me that there were some students and they want to organize some event for older people. And it seemed to her that this is something weird in this idea. So our student from our master program went to consult them, and they together organized the first event in the series of the community cafe in this region. So they invited people from all ages, local people, and they discussed about the meaning of the community. They formulated the values of this area, and then they generated ideas how those, what type of communities need to be conducted to keep and pass on those values from generation to generation. Quotation here is says that they all shared their memories, dreams, wishes, and thoughts on how to develop and keep their community vibrant. So two very similar events, and the question is whether they were intergenerational practices. If we take principles of intergenerational cooperation or practice, these are synonyms, Alex also introduced already, then we can evaluate those events. But the first message is that actually there is a widespread misunderstanding, as if bringing together representatives of different generations is sufficient for initiating intergenerational practice. IGP is the abbreviation of this. And there is the belief that just gathering generations together under the one roof, instant intergenerational magic occurs. As you can imagine, it's not truth. So this is the myth that you just need to bring young and older together for this intergenerational benefit. And actually, according to some researches, if you do this way, these ordinary contacts between people of different ages even reinforce existing age stereotypes. That means if you don't follow the theoretical intergenerational theoretical principles, the result can be even negative, not neutral, but even negative. The first hint how to do this professionally is that you need to guide or instruct people to do something, to do some activities in which they can see similarities between themselves. So these activities need to be those types of activities that you can recognize, you can notice and recognize features of the other person, and you can compare and you can recognize similarities. And the other professional hint for professional activity is that you need to follow some intergenerational practice, some principles of intergenerational practice. What type of principles they are? The main source of those principles are the same Alex introduced already. This is the Beth Johnson Foundation from UK, but there are some more added too. So intergenerational practice is the activity in which people from different generations are engaged. It is obvious. But they are doing activities which are purposeful for them, for all of them, and mutually beneficial. This benefit should not be similar for every person. Everybody can perceive a different or diverse set of benefits, but everybody needs to feel that this is beneficial for his or him. For her or him. The fourth principle is that this activity promotes greater understanding and respect between generations, and as a result, participants maintain relations based on sharing. So this one-time or single events won't never be intergenerational activity according to this definition, because there is no opportunity to maintain those relationships. So if we take this children's concert in the nursing home, probably they felt some benefits. They all felt some benefits, but definitely there was no opportunity to create some understanding and respect between each other. If we take this community cafe event, I must say that all criteria are met, because this is the serious and other criteria. So those five principles of intergenerational practice forms the base of this topic. Why we need to initiate intergenerational practice? The main reason is that this is there are only 2 or 3 solutions how to combat ageism, how to reduce age stereotypes, and one of these few solutions is intergenerational practice held professionally. Benefits. Many surveys have done on this field, and if you have followed those principles, that means you have conducted the long-term project and you have time to create those relationships between people and so on, then it really is beneficial for younger persons, for older persons, and for community as well. For example, a very famous project, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, they emphasized that they had enough money for that, and it was the long-term project, and as a result there was the reduction of drug use, a reduction of alcohol use, and drop out of schools among young persons, increased communication and problem-solving skills, and increased self-esteem was observed, and attitudes towards aging had improved, and what is also very important, a sense of goal setting has emerged, and a sense of contributing to the community has improved among young people. It is true that in early ages, in early years, young people struggle with the questions, what is their role in the society, and we need to give some opportunities to test and to create the perspective as a member of the society for them, and intergenerational projects help to do this. For older people, obviously it helps prevent isolation, creates a sense of worth. Older people who are regularly engaged in these activities have better memory work, fewer incidents of falls, use fewer mobility aids, and what is also impressive, a positive effect even among people diagnosed with dementia is observed. So it is really useful for older people, and you can imagine that it is useful for community as well. Crime incidents are reduced, resources are better used. Often this activity is related to local history, so community history is better preserved. Inaccurate and negative stereotypes are decreased, shared resources, and there is less generational alienation because everyone's contribution to the community is visible. Some examples. Our students from this master program, Community Work in Aging Society, needed to conduct a one-time project, unfortunately one time. And one of them, Anne, organized the book club. Older people's book club joined the school class. They decided the novel they read, and it was compulsory for the students, but it doesn't matter. And they then mutually discussed about this novel, and there was the quiz and so on. And all participants felt that they increased their knowledge, they got now things they didn't know, and they enjoyed this conversation on the basis of the book they all had read. So it was successful and easily copied in your country as well. I am a lecturer, but I am also active in social life, and I am the one of the founders of NGO 65B, who is dealing with creating tools for older people memory trainers. And one of our tools is the workbook. It is created originally for older people in Estonia, but it is targeted to not older adults, but to, let's say, middle-aged adults, to be sold or to be used together with his or her, with their parents. So this workbook promotes intergenerational dialogue as well. And in some sense, older people solving those exercises here have some advantage even. For example, there is one exercise for brain exercise. The user needs to compare numbers, and the question is, what is bigger? What is bigger? The number of years of the 5-year plan. 5-year plan is the Soviet term, 5-aastaku plaan. Every Soviet farm or organization had a 5-year plan. And what is bigger, the number of the years of the 5-year plan, or the number of the years implemented the 5-year plan? And if we ask young people, they definitely answer that the implementation is longer than the plan. It always exceeds the real implementation. But in Soviet time, everything was done ahead of schedule. So this is one example where older people have even advantages in front of for younger people. The other example is the quiz. I have created the form of the tool for younger and older people to show those similarities between generations. The name it's a long name. I don't translate it, but let's try to do this quiz. There are some rules in this quiz. There are older people teams and younger people teams, and half of the questions are easy to answer for younger people, and half of the questions are easy to answer for older people. And if the team gets the easy question, they need to give the correct answer, of course, and they need to have a guess how the other generation will answer to this question. Let's try. This is easy for Estonian older people. What label is it? And older people's team needs to give the correct answer and then give the second answer what younger people think what label it is. And if younger people don't know and they answer wrong, but the older people can imagine this wrong answer, you get double points. So you understand the other generation. So this label is label of quality label. It was massively used in Soviet time in Estonia, in Soviet Union. Almost every product got this high quality label, but actually the quality was not high. We cannot expect that the actual quality was high. Massively used, but usually not true. Me as a game manager here, it is not allowed stop on this point, because we love each other, and if we stop here, we even have even deeper age stereotypes than they were. But my responsibility here is to show similarities.
Tina, you have about 2 more minutes.
Okay, to show that yes, in previous times we had such a label, but right now we have similar labels, massively used, somehow indicating the high quality, but actually there is no high quality. What label it is nowadays meeting these criteria? I propose that this label is a label in Facebook or Instagram. So this is the example how we unite or merge different generations, showing that actually we don't differ from each other so deeply as we think. Intergenerational practice doesn't happen by itself. It must be consciously organized, and that's why also we need to learn how to organize, and we need to know how which principles are wrong, or which are wrong. How we can damage or to have negative outcomes from this if we don't follow the right professional principles. some advertisement. My big example and the source of my knowledge is the NGO generation, not NGO, but it is the state office generations working together, operating in Scotland, and they, in every spring, they organize the World Global Intergenerational Week, and I announce you to take part of this in your country and organize some events celebrating the intergenerational practice and its benefit. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you very much, Tina. We are going to move on swiftly. So next up, we have from all the way from Hungary, we have Dr. Erika Marek, who is going to tell us about the Roma elderly in Hungary. Welcome.
Okay, just a minute. Okay, so again, welcome everyone from all around the world. My name is Erika Marek and I'm from Hungary, Medical School, University of Pécs, and I'm really glad that today I can be here and share you some other aspects of this intergenerational connection. And but on the other hand, I would like to focus more on the elderly Roma population in Hungary, as it was highlighted in Shiri Jackson's speech, that the number of Roma people is increasing also in Finland and across the world, and also in Hungary. And there are some specific aspects of the elderly care for the Roma people, and this is what I would like to talk in the couple of minutes coming. Okay, so just a minute. What I would like to talk about, just to give you a short overview of my presentations, a few words about the Roma people in Hungary, their main demographic indicators, elderly care in Hungary in general, some regulations and the most common forms of elderly care, and including, of course, the financial aspect, and about some values of the traditional Roma families as well. And last but not least, about the intergenerational aspects and the views of the recent adult Roma people towards the elderly care of their parents. So firstly, Okay, so as far as we know, the Roma people started their move from northwest of India approximately 1,500 years ago, and they arrived at the Balkans approximately 900 years ago, and to Hungary in the 14th and 15th century, and they all spread across whole Europe, Middle East, and other parts of the world. And Roma people are called as Roma since the 1971 Roma World Congress, because the term gypsy, or in Hungarian cigány, is derogatory for this population. So it's a common word for this population, and in the academics we also use this. But in Hungary, gypsy is also accepted, especially if the Roma people identify themselves as gypsy or cigány, as they say. Okay. So the number of Roma people across Europe is estimated as 13 or 15 million, and there are differentiating proportions in different countries, with the highest proportions in Romania, Bulgaria, but in Hungary we also have 5 to 10% of the population are considered as Roma, especially by the health sociological estimations, because there is a huge discrepancy in the data of the census. When during the census the Roma people identified themselves as Roma or either non-Roma, and you can see the huge difference between the data. For example, in the 2011 census, it was only 300,000 people who identified themselves as Roma, and however, the number didn't decrease. In 2021, only 200, almost 10,000 people said that they are Roma, and the sociological estimations suggest that in Hungary, the real number is approximately in between 800 or even 1 million. And these huge differences could be attributed to the discrimination of this population, unfortunately. Okay, the mean age of ethnic minorities in Hungary, you can see on this slide. And you can see that among this huge number of ethnic minorities and the Hungarian population, the Roma people has a much lower mean age in general. This refers to the fact, and it's even more emphasized if we compare these ethnic minorities by age groups. And however, the proportion of people above 60 in the total Hungarian population is approximately 20%, which accounts approximately 2.3 million people. This is only 4.4% among the Roma people. So basically, we do not have much Roma people at the age or above 60, even about 80 is even much, much less. It's more visible if we compare it within the age structure diagram, if we put them together. On the blue side, you can see the total Hungarian population's age structure diagram, which shows the general age structure diagram of an aging society. On the other hand, you can see the Roma population in Hungary with high fertility rates, but above the age of 60, 70, and 80, there are less and less people. So basically, it's a shocking and alarming fact that the life expectancy at birth for the Roma people is 10 to 15 years lower than for the Hungarian population, and this is true across Europe. And in addition, they live shorter life. They experience significantly worse health status than the majority populations. Okay, so when talking about healthy aging of Roma populations, we have serious limitations, as you could see. The one is the lack of elderly age group among the Roma people. And the other one, that we don't have data. We don't have Roma-specific data, I mean. Even we don't have Roma-specific research much, since we cannot collect data during the health services, social services by ethnicity, so it's not allowed by law. But on the other hand, while the non-Roma population, even at an older age, looks younger, on the slide you can see a photo taken by me from a lady, and when I was discussing with this lady during a Roma mission, I asked her age, and I presume that she's around 55, 60, and she was 47 at the time of taking this picture. So they look much older, I think, unfortunately. So what we know, so we know that we have regulations, okay? By law in Hungary, the descendants are obliged to care for their elderly parents. So this is what we know. We know the common forms of elderly care in Hungary. We know the cultural aspects of the traditional Roma family, and we have some small-scale studies in relation to the attitudes of the younger Roma generations. This is what I would like to talk about in the coming minutes. Okay, so what we know, that we have a law that a child is obliged to support the parents, also the foster parents, in case the parent is unable to support themselves. This is generally financial support, but it could be sued to the child not only by the parent, but also by the care institutions. So if a parent is taken to a foster care, nursing home or elderly home, then the home may also sue the child to pay the expenses of the parents if the parent is not able to. So we have this by law. On the other hand, we are, of course, familiar with the system. I think it's quite similar in other countries as well. There are two main approaches. One is aging within the family, and the other one is aging within the institutional settings. Okay, so the governmental or official or formal social care system has different levels in Hungary. Of course, the primary care, which includes social catering for the elderly, domestic care, including personal assistance, not more than 4 hours a day, and also alarm-based home assistance, and it could be a daycare for the elderly and for people with dementia. Specialized care generally refers to temporary or long-term elderly care homes in Hungary. And this formal social care is rather cheap in Hungary. So there are some charges, but these are reduced and symbolic prices, especially at primary level. But also we have some private retirement home and the public for those who can take care of themselves. Okay, but we don't have ethnicity-based data on the usage of these services. So we don't know generally, but we can presume. And we can presume based on the financial aspects. So let's see some data again. The total number of these old age pensioners in Hungary, it's 2.3 million. But out of these 2.3 million people, 60% of them has less monthly income than 500 euros. So it's not really much. And only 4% has more than 1,000 euro pension in a month in Hungary. So it's not really much, as you can see. And what about the cost of this care? As I mentioned, this formal social care services has symbolic prices, and even it could be free those who don't have much income, and some municipalities may offer also free, and they may cover the full price. Still, the home care is approximately 1 or 1.5 euro per hour, and the catering is 1 to 4 euro per lunch for the elderly. So this is quite cheap. But what about the elderly homes? In Hungary, out of these 2.3 million pensioners, there are only 55,000 people, which accounts approximately 2.4%, who are living in long-term elderly care homes. And the price for these elderly care homes shows great variety, from 250 euros to 1,200 euros per month. And some, especially the private ones, require additional entry-on fees, which may be up to 20,000 euros. So not much elderly people, especially the Romas, surely cannot afford this huge amount of money. Okay. Why? What is among the Romas? What do we know about the Roma population's financial aspect? If we compare the data with the total Hungarian populations, for example, the risk for poverty and social exclusion, it is 1/5 of the Hungarian population who are exposed to this risk. However, it is 3 times higher for the Roma population. It's 61.7%, or around 60% of the Roma populations are risk for poverty. And when talking about severe financial deprivations, it is less than 10%, 9.3 for the total Hungarian population, while half of the Roma population are exposed to severe financial deprivations. Okay, what about unemployment? On the last line, you can see that 3.6% of the Hungarian population, so it's around 4% of the population, are living in households with very low work intensity with unemployment. However, for the Roma households, it is around 20%. So this explains a lot of stuff. Okay, what about the values of the Roma family? What do we know about? What are the main strengths, what we can build on? That Roma people tend to live on extended, multi-generation and close-knitted families, which is really cohesive, and the whole community is supportive for each other, mutually, of course. And the family-centeredness is an important value, and this supports the elderly, and the trusting relationships contribute to the older people's quality of life. It's really important for the Roma people to have their elderly parents a feeling of the security. The respect for elderly, who is the main decision maker of the family, also could be a protective factor, and the religiosity may also have some additional effects. So these are the values in the Roma family which have effects in the elderly care. Okay, and finally, I would like to talk about some small-scale studies which I found in Hungary, mainly interview surveys made among Gypsy adults, and these 2 studies focused on the attitudes of these elderly Roma people about the care of their parents as well. So one important aspect arise from these studies that the Roma families are multi-generational and rely on this responsibility and respect for the elderly. And just a minute. I put some quotes here that how the Roma adults in the studies felt about the care for their parents. And it said that I believe the child always owes the parents. And when the situation turns around, it is the child who can help the parents. These are the views of the elderly parents. And of course, when children take care of their elderly parents, they rely on the help of their parents as well. So she or he, generally she, always helps the family. And since the elderly man, Roma elderly men die even at a younger age than the females, generally when after the husband died, the child took the parents together with them. They don't want to feel their mothers alone after her husband dies. Okay, and not just the close family, but also the neighbors and other relatives help around the elderly people. Okay. On the other hand, it could be considered as a shame. So basically, in families, it's another quote that when parents get older, in some families, they become redundant. And what they do is administering to the parents into homes. I don't want to do that. So this is not the case with us. They feel it like a shame to put the parents into institutional care. We were brought like this. It refers that this comes from generation to generation, and that's how I bring my children. So they will take this sample and attitudes to their own children as well. But on the other hand, there are some exceptions when, for example, they need to change the diaper. So if their own assistance would be embarrassing or inconvenient for their parents, they would ask or accept the assistance of the health and social care system. But as long as we can, we will do what we can do ourselves. So they rather rely on their own help around the parents. Okay, another aspect is that maybe some Roma people have some kind of distrust or bad experiences or presumed or experienced the feelings of discriminations during their attempts to get health care and institutional care. And this could be another reason why they don't want to put their parents into institutions, because as they said, I don't want my mom to die impersonally. So they see the institutional care as it's impersonal, and the parents will be lonely and they don't take care of them, they may be discriminated, etc. So another quote, I love my parents and I don't want them to die I want them to die among the family, not in a nursing home or the hospital. So this is how the Roma adults feel about putting their parents into institutions. Another aspect, and referring back to the financial situation of the Roma population, is of course the financial lack of financial resources, and this could also impact the decision making about the elderly care. And as they said, we don't have money for a nursing home. We wouldn't give in anyway because mom doesn't want to, and we can't afford it. We are happy to be able to pay for the medicines. So families don't have the necessary financial resources when there are 10,000s of euros paying to the monthly paying to the homes. So they generally don't take. And on the other hand, when there is a kind of home care support from the government, which is very, very low in Hungary, and therefore a family member couldn't stay at home full time with their elderly parents. So this is why they share the task within the family and the relatives, and because otherwise they would be dropped out from the labor market, and they will not have much earning. So they cannot afford also to stay at home full time with their parents because of the low amount of this home care support. But when talking about their own elderly, these adults in this study had completely differing attitudes. So they trust when the time comes, they will get help from their children. So as they said, I really don't want to be on anyone next to be their burden, but I think I raise my children so that when the time comes, there will be no question that they will help me back. Okay, but on the other hand, even though they wouldn't place their own parents to the nursing home, When the time is about themselves and the question is about themselves, they wouldn't insist on going to a nursing home. They want to make their children's life easier and not to burden them with an expectation to take care of them. So they wouldn't put their own parents, but when they be elderly, they would go to the nursery home, not to burden the children. Okay, so this is a changing attitude of the generations. Okay, if we would like to summarize the views and attitudes of Roma adults towards the caring the elderly, so there are important aspects. The care for the elderly is multi-generational Roma families is clearly seen as the responsibility of the families, especially the females, but not just the close family, but the wider family, female members of the wider family, of course. It's considered as a natural and inherited process. It's not considered as a burden. It's so natural for them that my parents took care of me when I was a child. When I grew up and they become elder, I will take care of them, and they teach their children. So it comes from generation to generation. And this multi-generational close-knitted family is seen as the most optimal model for both financial and emotional security. And it's really important for those who are living within these families to have their elderly parents in safety and security, and to provide them the daily care and support in their physical needs. So this is a task shared with the family, but if needed and in embarrassing or inconvenient situation, they accept the assistance from the social service providers. When it comes to their own elderly, their views are differing. However, they trust the children would take care of them. They do not wish to burden them, and they would go elderly home, just as I said minutes ago. And respect and taking care of the elderly is a fundamental value in Roma families. Okay, what are the three main factors which influence the elderly care in the Roma families? Three main areas. One is the culture-related aspects, the family cohesion. And you have
about 1 minute, Erica. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, we are finished. The coexistence of generation and the relation to the traditions. So this is culture-related aspect. This is one important aspect. The second one is the trust. I mean, the distrust and the experiences or presumed experiences, not the ideas of feeling discrimination, etc. So the lack of confidence in the social care system and healthcare system that they could take care of their parents as well. And last but not least, the financial considerations from 2 points of view. One is the difficulties when entering a nursing home. They don't have the money to enter, but on the other hand, the labor market position. So if they will be dropped out from work and stay at home with the mothers, they will have serious financial issues as well. Okay, so I hope I could keep my time. And yeah, one more thing, that 10 years ago, we organized the department, this healthy aging of the Roma communities, together with WHO, an expert level symposium in Page, and we hosted this event. And we had this page declaration on healthy aging of the Roma communities, which is available on our website. And for those who are more interested in this, feel free to connect this website. Okay, and thank you for your attention with the smile of this nice grandmother.
Thank you, Erica. That was amazing. And thank you for keeping time. I'm sorry I've had to interrupt all the speakers because we have a very strict timeline today. So I think this should be the last presentation before we go for our break. If you would like to take some water, go for a bathroom break, please do so. Meanwhile, we are going to leave you, those who would like to stay, you could watch the next video that is by MUKES on the many faces of multicultural memory work. It was done by the Finnish Center for Cultural Diversity in 2022. Thank you. See you in 10 minutes after the break.
4 года назад я начала MUKES heute, когда у мамы был первый инсульт, и надо было обслуживать некоторое время. Там днем, утром, если вечером зайти, когда она жила одна. А теперь она живет со мной, и постоянно надо за ней присматривать. И она упала на улице, ей сделали операцию, и в больнице, когда мы к ней пришли, она не узнавала никого. С прошлой осени MUKES heute уже даже больше целый день, и не могу пойти где-то на полный рабочий день, только могу на частичную занятость.
أحياناً بحس إنه نسيانة بعض الأمور وبنسى الأسماء، لكن بتذكرهم بعد لحظات يعني. لا جداً بالنسبة إلي شيء عادي إني راجع طبيب وأحكي له المشكلة اللي عندي. لا مو خجل، لا هذا شيء عادي الواحد إذا كبر أحياناً ممكن يصير.
No meillä Kymenlaaksossa on vieraskielisiä asiakkaita ollut muistipoliklinikalla ja paljon myös muistakin kulttuureista tulleita, tai paljon, mutta kuinka paljon he ohjautuu sitten meidän muistitutkimuksiin, niin se on sitten eri asia.
لا
أبداً. oikeasti ei ole kertonut kelläkään.
كتير حلو هذا السؤال. نحن دائما أنا بس بدي أروح على الطبيب ما بوصل للأخصائي أبدا للأسف. بينهوا لي الأمر بسرعة وما بوصل للأخصائي اللي أنا رايحة أو للمرض اللي أنا رايحة مشانه.
Да, я смотрела сведения в интернете. Ну, врач объяснил, что восстановление кровообращения после второго инсульта уже так невозможно, как после первого. Потому что не дают такие таблетки, чтобы не было еще раз кровоизлияния в мозг. Поэтому что может ее память ухудшаться. Но я успокоилась, что это не Альцгеймер, что она на одном уровне вот уже целый год держится. Просто потеря памяти, как после инсульта и с возрастом.
لا لأنه الطبيب هو اللي بيعرف أكثر مني وأنا المصادر اللي عم أدخلها ممكن أحياناً تكون مو صح، تكون عن طريق النت يعني مو دائماً كلها صح.
No mun mielestä asiakkaat tarvitsevat aivan saman tiedon kuin kaikki muutkin, mutta sen minä niin kuin olen kokenut itse, että tuntuu, että he ei osaa kysyä. Eli silloin se hoitajan vastuu ja ammattilaisen vastuu siitä tiedon tuottamisesta on mun mielestä paljon suurempi. Eli meidän pitää pystyä sitten niin kuin antamaan heille sitä tietoa ja riittävän jotenkin selkokielellä ja sillä tavalla, että he pystyvät sen vastaanottamaan. Niin sitten voi miettiä, että kuinka vähän sitä on sitten sillä asiakkaalla ja perheellä. Että siinä kohtaa ehdottomasti, kun olisi itselläkin antaa jotain kättä pidempää, niin kyllä tarvitaan. Ja sitten sitä materiaaliahan meillä on aika suppeasti muilla kielillä. Tai ainakin itse olen kokenut, että on hyvin vaikea löytää. Ja sitten, että onko se just sitten esimerkiksi Suomen oloihin, Suomen palveluihin niin kuin suunnattu, jos katsoo semmoisia yleisiä ohjeita.
للأسف ما في عندي حدا داعمني باللغة الفنلندية، بس باللغة العربية عم ببحث.
Itse olen hyödyntänyt vaikka ruotsinkielisille Ruotsista löydettävää materiaalia, mutta sitten joutuu aina niin kuin sanomaan, että hei, tämä ei ole niin kuin suoraan meidän palveluihin.
شيء ثاني ممكن أسأله شو مثلا اللي بيقوي الذاكرة، لازم أخذ أدوية، لازم عن طريقة الأكل، الطعام. بدي أسأله إنه كيف بدي يوقف عندي هالشي، ما بدي إياه يتطور يعني شو أعمل؟ بهتم كتير وعم حاول لحالي، جبت فيتامين وأكلي بالبيت المكسرات.
Silloin kun tehdään muistisairauden diagnostiikkaa henkilölle, joka kieli on toinen, jolla ei ehkä ole kansainvälisesti englannin kieltäkään, niin tulkin välityksellä muistitesteistä joskus pärjää paremmin, mutta toisinaan on selvästi haasteita, kun käsitteet on toisenlaisia. Enemmän ehkä kuin kielitaidosta, niin kysymys voi olla myös niin kuin kulttuurista tai koulutuksen tasosta. Et Suomessahan meidän vanhoillakin ihmisillä on periaatteessa aika hyvä peruskoulutus ja luku- ja kirjoitus- ja laskutaito, ja sitten jos tulee kulttuurista tai pakolaisena tai traumaattisten kokemusten jälkeen ja ei ole ehkä valmiuksia tämmöiseen testityöskentelyyn, niin se ei ole se kieli, joka siinä nimenomaan aiheuttaa ongelmia, vaan ehkä se koko kulttuuraalinen tausta, että onko minkälainen lukutaito ylipäänsä, minkälainen tottumus testien tai tämän tyyppisten kysymysten kanssa. Kun kysytään kellon hahmottamisesta tai orientaatiosta, niin silloin joutuu joskus soveltamaan myös sitä, että mikä on sitten tämän ihmisen taustalla näiden käsitykset näistä asioista.
Mutta miten ammattilaisena minä koen, että aina se testaus, sehän ei tuo sitä absoluuttista totuutta niin kuin me tiedetään. Että ammattilaisena minä kannatan just sitä haastattelua, sitä muutosten esiin niin kuin nostamista, sitä mikä on niin kuin, mikä toimii, mikä ei toimi, ja verrattuna siihen, mihin ihminen on aikaisemmin kyennyt.
Mun mielestä tulkkipalvelut toimii pääsääntöisesti hyvin tällä hetkellä. Että meillä on hyvin usealle kielelle mahdollisuutta niitä pyytää.
No meillä Kymsotessa, mistä tulen, niin meillä on toiminut aina hyvin, että meillä on ollut muistipoliklinikka Kotkassa toiminut yli 20 vuotta. Eli se on jo tuonut sitä semmoista tietynlaista ohjautumisen mallia, ja poliklinika on meidän iäkkäille niin kuin tuttu. Eli sitten ihmiset osaa jo hakeutua ja matalalla kynnyksellä. Eli ei tarvita lähetettä, ei tarvitse käydä terveyskeskuslääkärillä. Että se on niin kuin mun mielestä hyvä. Eli se hoitopolun alku on sujuva. Että jos ihminen tai läheinen tai kuka tahansa huomaa niitä muistiongelmia tai haasteita muistin kanssa, niin sitten voi monta kanavaa pitkin ohjautua tutkimuksiin.
Ну, у нас это ОИВ-кескус помогает понять, какая болезнь, как ухаживать, какая нужна помощь. У нас ОИВ-кескус это помогает. Но еще вот есть ОМСХО-это организация, у которых тоже есть опыт, можно прийти посоветоваться. Ну, переводчик, заказываешь переводчика, и переводчик также приходит в больницу и беседует, сразу заказывает всех представителей, кого надо, и объясняют.
Welcome back, everyone, for the second session of this great webinar. So I would like to remind everyone to make use of the chat tool. If you have any questions, if you have any comments for all the speakers for today, you will all agree with me that we have great people speaking to us today. So please leave your comments and your questions for them in the chat, and they will try their best to answer or to comment if they need to comment on anything. So we will dive right into the next presenter, who is Dr. Anthony from Malta. He is a senior lecturer at the University of Malta, and we look forward to a great talk from him. Welcome, Dr. Anthony.
Hello, good morning. Good afternoon, actually, here in Malta. I don't know from your side. Hi, I'm Anthony. I will be, are you seeing the presentation? Is it okay? Okay, perfect. So I will be talking about sex, gender, and sexuality, and particularly in the context of dementia. But I will be looking at it from an intergenerational perspective. Many presenters before have talked about the importance of gender and how gender as a social construct influences intergenerational work and practices and learning. Of course, I will be trying to integrate sex, gender, and sexuality and dementia, but also within a context of intergenerational perspective. And in order to do this, I've decided to use some case studies. So I will be briefly, first of all, talking a little bit about what do we mean by sex, gender, and sexuality, as well as sexual orientation, which sometimes is mixed up with gender. But then I will be trying to go through some case examples, so case studies, which I partly invent, but also from my experience also of the Maltese context. So I took the Maltese perspective as well in that context to see to describe the dynamics, intergenerational dynamics, and to find an integration of the link between sex, gender, and sexuality, in particularly with caring or caregiving in dementia care. And we'll give some ideas or recommendations or learnings about these case studies from the perspectives and for healthcare and social care professionals in particular. So just a little bit of clarity when it comes to the definitions of sex, gender, and sexuality. Of course, sex is a biological construct which is associated with objective observations through the characteristics like hormones, chromosomes, etc. Gender refers to a social construct which generally defines what we culturally differentiate between different genders. When it comes to gender roles, when it comes to expectations and attributes, and what we perceive as what we consider as feminine or masculine within a particular context. Sexuality would then encompass a broader view, which includes also sexual orientation, reproduction, sexual pleasure, etc. And usually it's influenced as well by biological, psychological, but also socio-political, ethical, religious factors. Now, with regards to gender and sexuality and gender identity, sexual orientation, again, there should be a distinction, and they are not the same. And gender identity refers to individual personal concepts about what the person feels about their gender and how they identify themselves, whether they are in relation with the general population or the culture where they live, so cisgender, or whether they do not match with what they have been assigned at birth, what we refer to as transgender. Sexual orientation refers to different how we refer to romantic or sexual attraction, and we have different sexual identities and sexual orientations, and we define them usually according to whether we are heterosexual, bisexual, homosexual, or asexual. Of course, as I said, these are not the same. So we can have a person who is biologically a male, but then he experiences herself as a female in terms of gender identity, and in terms of sexual orientation, he or she may be attracted to a woman. So you can see that the difference between gender identity and gender orientation. Now, as I said, what I will be trying to do, I will be trying to go through some different case studies when it comes to these gender, sex, and identity, and in particular, dementia. However, I wanted to also acknowledge the importance of the intersectionality, the link between gender, as well as especially when it comes to gender inequalities and how these are associated and integrated with many other inequalities, which could be associated with ethnic, socioeconomic, as well as geographic and sexual orientation. So you can see that how gender can influence and can be add up to the inequalities in the different contexts. So let's meet Linda. So I have developed these, as I said, so with some experience, based on my experience and some ideas that I had. So look, Linda is a 67-year-old lesbian originally from Finland, who recently retired and moved to Malta with her partner, Olivia. They decided to settle in Malta for its warmer climate and to pursue their passion for scuba diving. Over the past few months, Ella has started noticing significant memory problems and difficulty finding the right words during conversations. Despite her concern, she is reluctant to see a doctor, fearing that the diagnosis could confirm her worst fears and negatively impact her relationship with Olivia. Ella and Olivia have only been living in Malta for a short time, have not yet built a support network. Ella is also worried that if her condition worsens, she might have to move into a nursing home. She fears that such a facility may not be inclusive or equipped to meet her specific needs as an LGBTIQ+ individual. And here, some points of reflection, of course, the fear of discrimination due to homophobia, but also the onset dementia. So you can see that there is an overlap here, and in particular, when it comes to that, there is the possibility of delayed diagnosis. There could be also challenges for diagnostic and post-diagnostic services, in particular because many a times we tend to associate dementia with old age, when in reality there is a small percentage, usually considered as a minority as well, of young onset dementia who may have as well challenges for diagnosis. The relationship with Olivia, so how this is going to change, and also the possibility that because of dementia, there could be changes as well in her personality and sexual orientation. It does happen sometimes. So there are these concerns. Older LGBTIQ+ people may also have challenges for less contact with biological families and may have an increased risk of social isolation. As well, to add to that, the issue of living in a place which is not their own home. Of course, there are challenges when it comes to use sometimes the term expatriates or migrants, although they are different, they're not exactly the same. However, when we talk about retired migrants in particular, there are some significant challenges, especially in this case, issues of language barriers and maybe accessibility to services provision, which I think happens also in other countries. Nursing homes may not be structured for young onset persons with onset dementia, and in particular to persons who are transgender. So these are some aspects that we need to consider. This is another case that I thought about with a very real situations that's happening through many countries, including Malta, where we're seeing an increase in migrants coming from Asian, in this case, for example, Philippines. So Malaya is a 30-year-old Filipino migrant who came to Malta to work as a live-in care worker with a 72 Maltese person living with frontotemporal dementia. She's finding it significantly challenging to care for him, since he has been acting inappropriate, taking sexual advances. She's reluctant to tell her only daughter, as she is afraid that she might lose her job. So you can see here there's an interplay as well between issues regarding dementia and sometimes challenges and personality changes associated in particular in this case with frontotemporal dementia, which may lead to behavioral challenges. So this can sometimes be misunderstood by caregivers and family members. There's also the issue of migrant workers, which often face challenges, power imbalances, and difficulties because of their culture. Different generations and cultures holding very variable expectations about caregiver, and especially with younger person. There's also the challenge of having a younger worker without support, maybe in a country which they don't know. So there could be this difficulty of finding some form of support, even from their own community. There is also problems with gender expectations regarding caregiving, as regarding the differences between younger female caregivers who may be in a vulnerable position, and also issues of language barriers, especially in certain cases. We're also seeing this very commonly in Malta, where we also have our Maltese language, and Filipino may have, other countries may have challenges. Migrants, foreign migrants may have challenges to communicate with older adults. So the importance of learning about and understanding the personality changes that happen with frontotemporal dementia, upholding the dignity and maintaining a safer environment for the importance of having emotional support systems, which also include people coming from migrant communities, open, respectful communication between generations, as well as having the importance of learning native language, especially for care workers, to facilitate communications, as well as policies that safeguard caregivers' rights while ensuring patients receive respectful and professional care. Another case that came that I was developing was thinking about is related to the situation that sometimes happens where we have older adults, especially with Alzheimer's disease, who meet sometimes the younger generation, and particularly grandchildren, sorry, and the challenges of caring, particularly in countries where we have still the majority of persons living with dementia living in the community, maybe slightly more, especially in the Southern European countries, maybe than the Nordic countries. So this was all my ideas with regards when I was developing this case study. So Maria is an 85-year-old widow living with severe Alzheimer's disease. She has 2 sons and a daughter. However, she is completely dependent on her youngest daughter, Victoria, a 35-year-old single woman who cares for her full-time in their own home. Victoria assists Maria with all her daily activities, including washing and changing her diapers. However, caregiving is often challenging as Maria resists her help. At times, Maria becomes obsessed and shouts, accusing her daughter of harassment, which leaves Victoria emotionally drained. Victoria receives some support from community services, but these services only cover a few hours a day. During this time, Victoria runs errands and tries to manage other aspects of her life. To dedicate more time to her mother, she works part-time, but this has made it increasingly difficult for her to make ends meet financially. Victoria's sister-in-law provides occasional support, though her primary focus is on caring for her own younger children, aged 6 and 8. The children sometimes visit their grandmother, but these visits can be confusing for them. Maria, due to her Alzheimer's disease, often does not recognize her grandchildren and may cry without any apparent reason. Victoria tries to explain to the children how to communicate with their grandmother, but they struggle to understand her condition and behaviors. So you can see that there's an interplay as well of different factors and aspects that needs to be considered. And these are some points of reflection. First of all, Maria's grandchildren struggle to understand her behavior. There is, of course, challenges with regards to understanding why she's acting in that way. family dynamics between generations may be strained as a result of the dementia caregiving. So it's occasionally there may be issues with regards to challenges as well, even between siblings when it comes to who is going to care for whom. Gendered expectations that the caregiver should be provided by the daughter, as we've heard as well by Erika's contribution with the Roma people in Malta. There's still this sense of providing caregiving support, especially in the community. And generally, this is mostly as provided by the daughter, so by females. And this is a quote as well from a study that was done in Malta of caregiving in community for persons with dementia. And I would like to read this. I want that we all look after her. This is what this daughter was telling about her mother, who with no input from their three brothers. So I want that we all look after her, but it was not going to happen because my brothers don't want to. They are saying that I'm obliged to do it because I am the girl, and this is the illness of the family that says that the girl cares and that the boys follow this understanding, this tradition. So although this is changing a bit even in our context, but still it's very much dominated, and previously maybe it was more evident. There is also from what the case study, this challenge sometimes from caregivers to balance their caregiving responsibility across generation. And we're probably familiar with the term sandwich generation. So Victoria's sister-in-law is a case in point here, where we have to care for her children, but at the same time she needs to provide maybe some support to Maria's needs. So you can see that this is also a challenge, especially in this context, as well as the sometimes challenges when it comes to trying to balance the economic sacrifices of caregiving, giving most probably financial the challenges when it comes to, for example, how this will influence the patient in this case. So we can see as well how caregiving can also increase the risks of financial and economic sacrifices. Here, what I would like to point out is on the right, there's a book that depicts it's a Maltese and written by a Maltese author to explain to younger generation what it means to live with dementia, and also to help them appreciate. So trying to use a language which is appropriate as well for the younger generation to understand and explain the conditions of Alzheimer's disease is also important. So it helps in encouraging mutual understanding, and in this case, reducing frustration from the younger generation. Sharing caregiving duties among family members can reduce the burden. And in fact, the study that I was referring to also identified this rotating care, which is still quite also happening in the community in Malta, where there is many times different family members sharing responsibilities and supporting persons, in particular persons with dementia and older adults. And of course, the importance of providing policies that support families to having, for example, flexible work arrangements. We do have these available in Malta, and the need for expanded community care programs. So I think when I was doing these case studies, I thought, how these constructs, these aspects of care can relate to each other, and definitely there is an integration or intersectionality of caregiving in the context which from the cases that I was talking and thinking about and reflecting about, we can see that there are intergenerational issues, gender issues, but also cognitive issues and cultural issues which intersect within a context of caregiving, which of course can be quite challenging and unique in that perspective. So each case can be considered as a separate and of course requiring individual attention and person-centered attention. So to conclude, I think these case studies highlight the importance of person-centered and comprehensive support services that, of course, do not consider the physical challenges of dementia care, but also the psychosocial needs of the caregiver and the person with dementia. Within a context of caregiving that sometimes can be also discriminating. So we have to look at the context and see what are the realities within that culture, within that context. We need to, of course, work hard to try to reduce these discriminations and inequalities. Within a society where there are still a lot of stereotypes and stigma, especially when you have these overlaying inequalities associated with the dementia, so cognitive impairment, the gender issues and expectations, as well as cultural context. So, of course, the inclusivity, when we talk about inclusivity, we need to look at how the environment and the language needs to be more inclusive, recognizing the unique challenges and providing individualized and person-centered choices, providing staff training about intersection and intergenerational challenges in dementia care, and promoting intergenerational connections, and speak about against any form of bias. I think these are recommendations that can, of course, be applied globally. So just to add that there is this further document which is a guide for health and social care workers that was developed by Alzheimer Europe and focusing on sex, gender, and sexuality in the context of dementia, which is available online as well. And I think it's worth to have a look at as well. So thank you very much.
All right.
Right in time.
Yes, right in time. Thank you, Anthony. So next up, we have Joe coming all the way from Australia. Thank you, Joe, for joining us. We look forward to hearing from you. And Joe is Senior Research Fellow at the National Aging Research Institute in Australia. And she's going to tell us about dementia care by multicultural carers in Australia. Thank you, Joe. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'll just correct you a little bit because I've just changed jobs 5 weeks ago. But I now work at the, I'll share my screen first of all. There you go. Da, da, da. Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Excellent. So, yeah, I've recently changed job and I now work at La Trobe University, which is still in Melbourne, but I am reporting today on data and research that I've done at the National Aging Research Institute, and I'm still affiliated with the National Aging Research Institute. But today I'm talking about carers, care by multicultural caregivers of people living with dementia. The research that we've done, my team and I, doesn't only highlight some of the challenges that these carers face, but also I'll be looking at some of the heuristic strategies, so sort of the home strategies that people use to navigate care and overcome some of the challenges that people face in their everyday lives as they care for people they love. Now, I just want to set the stage a little bit because you may not be terribly familiar with Australia and the context of Australia. So Australia is a very large country. I'm in Melbourne, Australia, which is all the way down the bottom. You can only get further if you move to the South Pole, and that's pretty cold, so I don't want to do that. But it is so. I've done all the research that I'm talking about today has been conducted here. It is one of the most multicultural nations globally, and we have nearly 30% of the population has been born overseas. And I just quickly looked up while Siri introduced, talked about how many people there were in Finland born that were migrants. We have more than 8 million people. This is of 2023. That are born overseas, and that number is steadily growing every year. And 1 in 3 older adults also come from a culturally and linguistically diverse background. So it's fair to say that Australia is a melting pot of cultures. And similar to most places in Europe and Scandinavia and in Finland and every place else in most what we would classify as Western countries, the population is aging. And our population here is also aging, as is the multicultural community. Now, what we're seeing in the multicultural communities is that we're getting a wave of the sort of initial migrants that came, Greeks, Italians, and I do believe there's also quite a lot of Maltese people here, Anthony. So, so we're seeing waves of these migrant communities growing old. However, in the years to come, we've done some modeling, and there'll be a growing representations of seniors born in Asia, Africa, and other parts of Oceania. So that will reflect broader changes in the migration patterns as we're seeing them, and we sort of need to start preparing to be able to care for these communities. And I should mention, I do stumble in my English sometimes because I'm also one of the 30% born overseas. I'm actually from Denmark originally, so I'm closer to home with you guys. Now, today, the data I'm drawing on is a large Australian study that I've been involved with a few years back. It was called Moving Pictures, for which we aim to co-produce dementia awareness digital resources with multicultural communities. To this end, we video interviews both family carers and key service providers that work with people with lived experience of dementia for multicultural communities. So, and I'll show you the languages we worked with. Now, I hope I will have time to show you one of the films that we produced at the end, but I'll see if I can get through the talk quick enough. Now, I based the paper that I'm basing my talk on today, reports on the data drawn from 93 of the interviews we did with carers, which represented 8 of the 10 languages we worked with. Later, we did further interviews. So we have here Arabic, Mandarin, Cantonese, Hokkien. So the Hokkien language was sort of incorporated under the Chinese umbrella because we had 2 interviews of people who spoke Hokkien, and our research assistants spoke Hokkien. So we included them. Tamil, Hindi, Greek, and Italian. We later on also did Vietnamese and Spanish, but those weren't included in this particular data set. So via video interviews, and as you can see on the picture, that's actually one of the video interviews, we explored caregiving experiences in depth, including concerns around stigma, illness beliefs around dementia, what family support looked like, and we've touched in the earlier talks. There's been a lot of talk around family support and how that works, practical and emotional aspects of dementia and caregiving. Our interviews were conducted mostly in language, sometimes in English, depending on what the caregiver was comfortable with, by our bilingual staff. So we always had a staff member who spoke both language And then it was transcribed verbatim in language and then translated so that we could analyze the data, because I don't speak all those languages. And our video data was then used to co-produce with the different communities short films and comics in the different languages to raise dementia awareness. And these are freely available online as well. Now, today I want to cover a number of themes, including the emotional upheaval associated with the early stages of dementia and coming to terms with dementia and as a carer, the stigma and losing face, but also coming to terms with the disrespect that people often face on behalf of their parents or the loved one that they care for. The emotional management of a person living with dementia and also the caregiver, how they have to manage their emotions, and also caring for the carer. And I may also infuse a few tidbits that are outside the paper that I'm presenting on, just merely because I've worked with this data for such a long time. So I do apologize if I go off on a tangent. So Anna, stop me if I start going over time. Now, in terms of the emotional signals like anger and frustration, which often serve as early signs of dementia, but also created significant stress for the carers. Many described losing their temper and then feeling very guilty about these responses, but subsequently learning to harness the anger and frustration, as highlighted by Gianna. I know that at the beginning I was a mess. I was so agitated, angry, and now I've toned down. I've learned to calm down, not let things stress me out. And I just go with the flow now. And yet others describe the feeling of loss and grief of losing the most valued parts of the person that they loved. I'm not going to go through all the quotes because it will take forever. I'm sorry. Furthermore, carers in our study reported that they felt that once the symptoms became evident and the person with dementia was aware that something was wrong, many of the people with dementia would seek to hide from the world and not engage in the way that they normally would have. This was a cause of concern for many, but some discussed that some of the behaviors and the loss of function may have been embarrassing for for their loved one, which caused them to isolate. But most considered that the isolation would hasten the progress, and they tried to stop there, encourage their loved one from to go out and do the things that they normally would. There were unsurprisingly concerns about stigma from the community, as highlighted in the quote by Liu Qi, who highlighted that the family might lose face because of the behaviors of the older person. So she said, the Chinese have a saying, shame of the family cannot be spread outside. This is a very important saying, because after an elderly person gets dementia, a lot of their behaviors become abnormal. However, most carers were very critical about anyone using negative language about people with dementia in their community, and most agreed that attitudes towards dementia in general were improving. Interestingly, what some of our carers did report was that they didn't feel stigma per se, but rather experienced that people pitied the older person living with dementia rather than offer the respect that they felt that the person actually received, that really upset them a lot. Now, in terms of emotion management, now recognizing the gravity of the illness, carers stressed the need to protect their loved one from any negative emotions and stress, especially at later stages of the illness. Now, while the person may not be able to communicate, they will feel the love and care around them. It was, however, made clear by many carers that caregiving was exhausting And it was very easy to have negative attitudes, which could cause a bad environment for everyone, both the carer and the person living with dementia. But as highlighted by Lin Cheng, every day you need to maintain a sunshine attitude. It's very important. Every day you must tell yourself more kindness. While sometimes a struggle, bringing a positive attitude and a calm environment, the caregiving will be easier for the person with dementia. And they'll just have an overall better experience, both for the carer as well as the person living with dementia. Family conflict was also central for some carers, where some discussed that family members often would refuse accepting dementia as a medical condition and would blame the person with dementia either for being lazy or difficult, which could, of course, cause a lot of tension. Alternatively, they would also disregard it as being just part of old age. We also heard from other people that even doctors would at times not diagnose dementia and just say, oh no, they're just getting old, or of course they're feeling a bit depressed because their husband died, so let's not worry about the memory loss. So sometimes it was quite hard to get a diagnosis for family members, which was concerning, especially within migrant communities. Others, especially those from Chinese, South Asian, and Arabic-speaking communities, felt a strong duty to care for their elders at home, and considered it shameful to accept help from outside, which caused significant tension and pressure on many carers. And as I think it was Anthony mentioned, that it was kind of considered often a girl's job. So it wasn't always a fair distribution of work. So it was often the women who would take over that burden, and the rest of the family would come and visit on a Sunday and bring cake or whatever. However, when family members were convinced that it was a medical condition, this helped legitimize the use of formal care, which could often lighten the burden of care. Participants also described keeping the peace by simply going along. Like Lasmis said, he's the same person, but the brain is not the same brain. That's why we have to deal with them with dignity, with passion, to be understanding. Never, ever argue with them. Whatever they tell you, agree with them, because they're happy and you're happy. Or using other techniques with the person with dementia to avoid tension, like diverting attention away from the issue that was causing tension, but by all means trying to avoid correcting them directly. So they would come up with all different ways of avoiding any direct conflict. Now, having to do this was for many very hard to accept at first, and it took a while for many to sort of come to the realization that this was the way that they just have to deal with someone that was had been a parent or a husband or a partner or a wife. But once they come to terms with the illness and found that the person responded to these sort of methods, it slowly became easier. And a number of people used the analogy of treating the person living with dementia as a child. And while infantilizing the person living with dementia has been very harshly criticized in the literature, for the carers in our study who used this particular terminology, it was described as a very effective coping strategy for them to manage their own emotional well-being. because they, as I said, managing a small child often requires a huge amount of patience, repetition, and love, and getting angry is mostly futile. So it worked for them to sort of use that, keep telling themselves that they had to have the same patience with the person they were caring for. Now, a very important point, and I really want to drive this home, is the carers, and also in other studies that we've done, is the critical importance of taking time for the carers to recover, relax, and energize. Otherwise, the caring simply is not feasible, and the quality of care at home will not be good. In Australia, within certain community groups, we're lucky to have really good ethno-specific services available, such as the Chinese, Greek, and Italian communities, where they have very specific services with that are in language, and day programs that are culturally appropriate, and a person with dementia can spend the day, and there's home care packages that people can take avail of. And that's fantastic. Other groups are not so lucky. Many, for example, South Asians, there aren't that many services available. And that adds to their burden of care when there is no services that are specifically suited to their needs. In some of the larger families, and I heard this particularly in larger Arabic-speaking communities, they would set up a regime of care where the older brother would come on a Saturday, the younger brother on a Sunday, the younger sister on a Monday. But that was very rare. Usually the care fell on one or two people, and usually the women. But in our study, carers also highlighted the importance of getting peer support. It was such a welcome reprieve for most, whether it was a formal or informal group. It really allowed people to share experiences, have a vent and a laugh, and it was beneficial to ask for advice. And being part of a group of people who have this shared experience made carers feel less isolated as well. Now, I just want to conclude. Sorry, I need a drink. So while carers clearly stress that dementia is a distressing condition, many felt a strong sense that they needed to shield the person that they were caring for from any negative impacts of the disease and the reality of the symptoms, for example, by creating spaces and environments that are peaceful and calm to keep the person with dementia as happy and as well cared and loved for as possible, which in turn also made caregiving easier. Within the Chinese community, the concept of losing face could lead to isolation of the person, and this also came up in the Vietnamese community quite strongly. Was based on the fear of community judgment. However, others mentioned that they really wanted their loved ones to be respected rather than pitied, because they lived with a medical condition and it wasn't their fault. So they still deserved respect. Now, and leading on from that, conceptualizing dementia as a medical disease was useful in many situations. It allowed carers to convince family members who did not believe that it potentially was a medical issue to accept external care. And for carers themselves, it was useful to fully understand that why the person was behaving the way they were, or why they were having the symptoms that they were experiencing. And it wasn't because they wanted to cause trouble, it was simply because of the disease, and it made it very much easier for them to fully be able to care for them. For some, reframing the person as a child that they needed to care for, whether this is acceptable or not, for thought leaders in the academic world. It really helped carers who had dedicated their lives caring for a mother or father to better care. Like someone said to me, and it sort of relates to what someone else said earlier on. They changed my diaper. Now it's my time to change theirs. So they felt that they now owed the care to their parents. And lastly, and this is very key, carers have to care for themselves. If they're not able to be fully healthy and doing well for themselves, they can't care either. If there's services available, perfect. If not, that's less ideal, but people still need to find groups to talk and still need to have an outlet to share experiences. And the power of having a peer-to-peer support group was very clearly articulated by our participants. And this is not just for dementia carers. In past research I've done in depression, this was also the case. So it comes very strongly across illnesses and across different groups. And the picture you see here is actually from one of the groups that we worked with, and it's a picture of a stress management exercise being done by a peer support group. Now, I think I might just have 2 minutes to show a snippet of one of the films. So if I can do that, and then I'll stop it when I'm out of time. So this is one of the films that we did. So I'll stop it once I'm out of time.
Dementia is something that really does strike at what makes us human. It's this deterioration in all of those higher human capacities, and that's troubling and disturbing. It's troubling and disturbing if you're very close to it as a family member, and it can be quite troubling at a distance. So I think part of the stigma of dementia is really rooted in human fear of being robbed of some of those higher human capacities.
The word itself, anya, actually means out of your mind. So it has connotations of mental illness as opposed to what we're trying to communicate to people, that it's a disease. And that's why it's often easier for me in some ways to introduce the diagnosis of one of Alzheimer's disease rather than anya.
第一個反應就話原來真係有老人痴呆症啊！因為我哋喺香港嚟㗎嘛，以前成日都係笑人哋啊，冇記性就話老人痴呆啊咁。嗰一刻我哋先知道原來真係有一個咁嘅病症，就而呢個病症咧就唔係真係淨係唔記得嘢懵成成咁簡單。咁係咯，就係。
Συνήθως μιλάμε πολύ ανοιχτά για τη διάγνωση ότι είναι ασθένεια η άνοια.
Sorry.
Και όλοι μας μπορούμε μια μέρα να έχουμε άνοια στο μέλλον.
Very democratic disease. Anyone can get dementia. I've had patients who've been vice chancellors or professors or very senior politicians or hotshot lawyers. I've had patients who've been very little educated, who've been labourers, men, women.
Thì giống như chị Trâm hiện tại bây giờ 5-6 bác thì chỉ có một bác là con rất là thoải mái cho đi ra ngoài. Còn đa số là họ ngại, họ không muốn cho ra ngoài. Họ muốn ra ngoài, họ sợ bạn bè biết, hàng xóm biết, những người thân biết là mẹ mình bị bệnh như vậy. Rồi họ coi thường mẹ mình. Đó. Thành ra là họ không có muốn cho đi sinh hoạt. Chị dẫn mẹ em đi đâu thôi, đừng có dẫn vô chỗ hội đó nghe. Chị đừng có dẫn mẹ em tới đó nghe. Nhưng mà họ không nói ra, nhưng mà mình biết. Mình nhìn là mình biết, họ nói giống như họ mí vô đó mấy bà đó nhiều chuyện lắm, em không muốn.
¿Por qué será que nosotros a veces no hacemos las conexiones o no pedimos ayuda o no queremos atraer atención que capaz que no está todo bien con un familiar? Y yo pienso es porque como inmigrante a veces tenés que... Lo que estás haciendo es tratar de encajar en el nuevo lugar y querés tener ese sentido de, ¿cómo es? Le digo, yo lo puedo decir como un sentido de belonging, ¿viste? De ser parte de algo. Entonces, si tienes un familiar que tiene demencia o que muestra síntomas, puede ser ese estigma.
This isn't.
Okay, thank you, sir. I hope you enjoyed that, and I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Joe. Yes, we have enjoyed your presentation and the video. Unfortunately, we cannot be able to watch the rest of it, but thank you. That was quite helpful. So we dive right to the next speaker back here in Finland, back home in Finland. We have Susanna Lehtovaara. And Susanna works at Jade Yhteisö ry. She is the executive manager. Susanna, I'm sure you can hear me. The
Yes.
platform is yours.
Thank you. I will share my presentation and then we can begin. My presentation is about intergenerational support and challenges of foreign-born families in Finland, and the title is Together Through Thick and Thin. As Anne already said, I'm working at Jade Yhteisö, which is an NGO situated in Helsinki in Finland, and we promote inclusion, participation and holistic well-being of older people with migrant background. So we offer social support and different kind of activities at the moment with 10 different languages. And mostly our members come from countries outside of Europe, so a little bit further away.
Susanna, can you please show your presentation as a slideshow?
It doesn't show. Okay, for me it does.
Yes.
I'll try to do it again then. I don't know why. Let's try again. We should be here. Can you see it as a slideshow or not?
No, I can see just the slides.
Okay.
But well, the time is going, so you can just use the program like it is and just start from the first slide. You're on the third at the moment in my screen.
Okay. Now you can see it's the two persons here laughing with each other. Yes, I will do it as this. It doesn't matter. I will put it as big as I can. So in Jade, we provide low threshold activities for people over 50 years of age who come from countries outside of Europe. So at the moment, our language groups are Somalian, Arabic, Kurdish, Chinese, Vietnamese, Thai, Persian, and Dari. And we provide activities for our members that are peer support groups with all of these languages, exercise activities, volunteer activities, and also service guidance to help people to get into the services that they have right to have. And also for the professionals, we're doing advocacy work. So advocating for older migrants' rights in Finland. And through that, we're doing workshops, trainings, consultations, different seminars and events about the diversity in older age. So this is, in a nutshell, what we're doing in Jade. And my presentation will arise from the experiences within our community, but also there will be research background to it. So firstly, there is two pictures and a quote from one of our members. I'm like a tree that has been torn from its roots and placed on a new soil. And I think this represents very nicely the idea, the feeling that an older person with a migrant background might have when moving to a new country or getting old in somewhere else than they suppose they would. As a younger tree or a person, if you look at the left side photo here, it's a lot easier to sort of root yourself to a new country. But then if you look at the other picture with an older tree, you know that the roots go very deeply into the soil, and it's very hard to kind of take yourself out of that and then move to another country. And the situation might be that, especially if you have a refugee background, you never realize that you will be getting old in another country than where you used to live. But also for those people who have migrated for employment or to work or with the family, maybe they also thought that they would someday return when they retire. But at the moment, at least in Jade, we have people that have had this idea of returning to the home country, but now their families, their grandchildren, their social surroundings are here in Finland. So it's again a big decision not to go or then to go and move back. So some of the problematics of growing old in a new home country, that is the need for older people services may already begin at the age of 50 or 55. There was some talk about this also in the chat. But in the Finnish service system, we expect you to be plus 65 to go into older people services. So there is this gap. And vulnerability and the need for support comes from many different aspects in older person's life. As already said about intersectionality, that's also very much present. But unfortunately, if you are a migrant, we see that people are seen mostly through the gaze of a migrant and what consists of that, and not as an older people. And we are saying that they need to be seen as older people firsthand, with all their life experiences, of course. Well, people migrate mainly because of work and family. Grandparenting plays a role here as well, especially in Jade. It's seen with the Mandarin Chinese speaking group members and the Vietnamese group members, that they have moved to Finland to be grandparents here. Forced migration plays a very small role. And I already talked about the wish to move back to home country. It's present, but people also understand that maybe not possible. And people live in very transnational families, and there's also transnational care division then that needs to be thought about. Well, are the services equal? Well, in the Finnish context, at least, I would say that in the European, maybe in other countries as well, integration doesn't really work for older people because integration services, as they promote education and work life. They promote that you learn the language, the native language, and then you move on with your life. And that doesn't work for older people. So it kind of leaves older people out. But at the same time, older migrants should be seen as older people, but the diversity of population is not really understood in older people's services. So here the service system lacks. It's not prepared to equally take care of the needs of so-called non-typical clients. So the clients that don't speak Finnish, don't have a Finnish background. There are organizational limitations. So the organizations, social health organizations, are unable to adjust their services. There is no equal accessibility at the moment, and there is also different kind of attitudes and discrimination. Of course, there are these personal limitations like language skills, knowledge of the system, structure of society, and so on. But here I found a nice illustration, which I think represents really nicely that we have problem with the system. So the tree would be a social healthcare system, and the system is somehow obscure or somehow flawed, not the people that are using the system. So here we're moving from inequality to equality, to equity by giving the person who needs a little bit more support, we're giving them a little bit bigger ladder. but then justice would be to fix the system, so fix the tree to grow more equally and give these apples to everyone. So this is something that we're still going to have to do in Finland, but I believe in other countries as well. There's again a few quotes from our members. We don't know what's going to happen to us when we grow old and when we can't take care of our own things. Who will be there to help? I don't want to always ask help from my children. I know they are busy. I want to take care of my own things as long as I can. So there is invisibility in our society, invisibility of older people with migrant background. And these stem from different things. In my experiences, the older members that we have, they say that, don't mind me, I will get along. I can manage. I just want to be here. Don't mind me. So there's a lot of gratitude, especially if you have moved to Finland as a refugee. You are very thankful for given the place, secure place to live in. So you don't push the system. You don't give feedback to the system. Not even to your family members that something is going wrong. But on the other hand, there is also this tiredness. People are very tired of whatever is happening in their lives when they cannot get the support that they would actually need. But it's very hard to go and say that now I need some more. And then there are these invisible obstacles in the service system that we don't really see. And we should understand that the age brings along cumulative vulnerabilities, which are not often recognized in the services because we tend to look at people from the migrant perspective, which we should not. And I'm also saying that this fast digitalization of the system, I think Finland, Estonia are the most digitalized systems at the moment for the social and healthcare. It's moving fast. You need to know a lot. You need to have the equipment to get into the systems. This makes people disappear in the system even more than it has already. People need to use their bank, online banking credentials to log into the system, and for the officials it shows that the people are using the digital systems themselves, but actually we know that they are not. Their family members are, or some other relative, or some other friend, or an NGO worker is using the system. So actually the older persons are really disappearing into the system even more. Then there is this crisis of getting old. In a way, I already talked about old age in a wrong place. I don't mean they are in a wrong place, but they are in a place they might never have pictured themselves getting old in, or pictures their families to be in. And the generational gap causes misunderstandings within the family. So the older persons may be more connected to the home country, to the culture, to the traditions, to the society, even the news, the ideals of the home country. Then their children may be in between, but the grandchildren may be already a lot further away from those traditions. So this causes, of course, there's expectations, but then there is the reality that families live in many different ideals. We know that there is lack of social networks, and it causes loneliness. This is not talked about a lot. It's something that people don't want to bring out. It's something that they maybe cannot bring out because of religious ideals or ideas of culture. But still, we see in our activities that people may be very much alone, even if they live with their families. But the family members are at school or at work, and you are spending actually a lot of time at home on your own. And you may not have such big networks to begin with. The idea of family care is very strong, and it's expected within the communities, but it's also an expectation in society. And this is problematic if the society also thinks that, okay, if you are a migrant, you will be taken care of by your family. And that's something that the family also wishes, and the person itself wishes. And then we don't have to take a role. But we know that that's not the case in all the situations. For the younger people, there's a lot of honor, responsibility, but also a burden taking care of their family members. And this is something Erika also brought up in her presentation. But expectations and then the reality. So there's a big presumption of this family care. There's also in the society a presumption of close-knit families and these collective cultures, where I hear this all the time in the Finnish society. We think that in the Finnish culture is very individualistic, and then opposed to it are these collective cultures that people want to take care of their family members and so on. And of course, that is there. But actually in Finland also, we want to take care of our family members, but the society doesn't allow it. It's not so easy. Also in the Finnish society, there's this presumption of taking things in your own hands. So if you go to a social office, you go to healthcare, you need to, you are given different kind of tasks that you need to take care of your own. But if we imagine an older person with a migrant background, maybe they don't, maybe they talk a little bit of Finnish, but then they are given different kind of papers to fill in Finnish or English or Swedish, even though it's clear that it's not possible for them, it is still expected. Or then it's expected that they have someone at home or close by that they can ask help from. But we need to know that not everyone has family or has family in Finland or in the same country, because people's family lives are very transnational. And even though the older person would live with their family members, their grown children are not always oriented to take care of the things concerning older people's services. They are very busy with their own lives. And Joe also talked about this emotional work that needs to be done. I mean, it needs to be understood when taking care of your family members or any situation if your family member is getting old. So getting old is a process. It might be identity crisis for some, especially if there is memory disorder, if there is dementia. There is denial of reality, maybe from the person themselves, but also from a family member. And it's important to deal with these changes and emotions together as family, but also understand that you can't talk about everything just within the family, but also you need to deal with it separately. Friends and community may also have hard time understanding what is happening. And as we saw from the video, there are people want to protect their family from gossip and things like this. There might be different situations that if there is a dementia, that the community doesn't really understand that something is going on, but they just expect that everything is as it always was. There is social control that can be done by the family members. For instance, in the pandemic times, there were these older persons that wanted to come to our activities in Jade, but their family members said that no, you can't come. You will get sick in there. So there are a lot of good intentions from the younger generation to their parents or family members, but there can be wrong actions. Taking care of the things too much, just saying that you as an older person just lie there on the bed or be in the sofa and I will cater everything for you. But in the Finnish context, we see that you need to be active yourself to promote your health and well-being yourself as well. So there is this double things happening all the time. So one example from an older couple or a family care situations. So there was this older couple with migrant background that were active in our community center, and the husband has dementia and the wife is informal caregiver, and only one of their children is living in the same city and in the same country as they are. And there was a home visit by social and healthcare sector. They were interviewed of what services they need. There was an interpreter there as well. And all the family, so all three persons were interviewed at the same time. This would never happen if there wasn't an interpreter, if it wasn't a migrant family. They would interviewed separately. So in this situation, the wife couldn't tell what was really actually going on at their home. And also in the same situation, their child, grown child, said that, okay, I will take care of all this paperwork. But actually, the ideal of this family care went wrong because their child didn't take care of their things. They didn't know how to. They needed support. They didn't have the time. But then also the social workers thought that, okay, they will do everything because they said that they would. So there was a fail from the family care side, but there was also fail from the social and health service system. So the social workers made many mistakes.
2 minutes, Susanna.
Yeah, thanks. So there was these expectations that the family will care and want to care, but then not understanding that wasn't the situation in this case. So it's not always ideal for the family to take care. So how could we help the family members? We need to listen and discuss the needs and wishes that they have, and they need to understand the needs and wishes that their family members have. So if I'm talking about the younger persons, what they could do, they need to support self-determination and rights of the older person. They need to keep in mind, and this also goes along with the service system, that family members do not act as interpreters in care situations, if possible. In many cases, it is possible, some cases not, and then it's helpful, but no. And the younger persons can also help designing the home, the facilities to support the older person's abilities. And there's a lot of support from the service side to be able to do this actually. And how can we then enhance intergenerational social support? So we need to give space and voice to the migrant communities. We can facilitate building communities and support the NGOs that work with these communities. We need to make it easier to access the knowledge, not only by printing out different kind of leaflets, but to discuss, to bring the knowledge into the communities, ask what people need, and so on. We need to enhance participation and inclusion in services. It's easier said than done. Sometimes it's just we try to do it, but we're not as good as we need to be. And we need to understand that there are changes needed to be done to the structural system, in this case to social healthcare system, to provide services equally for everyone. And not just think that, oh, our services are equal as they are. At the moment, no, they are not. Thank you. Anne, your microphone is off.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I say thank you very much. And also thank you for keeping time. That was a good presentation. So the last speaker for the day is Siri Jackson. She is the founding member and CEO of the Finnish Center for the Cultural Diversities and Memory. And she's going to tell us about the intergenerational memory work with foreign-born people in Finland. Siri, the platform is free for you.
Well, thank you, Anna. And thank you all. It was so fascinating day, and I'm so happy to be here to realize that we are doing all the same kind of work in different angles, and yeah, there is a lot of things to do together. But yeah, I will skip this dia because we a little bit talk about our situation here in Finland and data. So I will start right away as about our activity, and this is Jututtaja, what we developed in here in Finland. It's called Jututtaja like storyteller, and this is method for developing the inclusion of foreign-born older people by promoting memory and brain health. It all started in Estonia when Tiina Tambaum developed an activity, and we thought this was interesting, and we adopted this this great idea here in Finland to the foreign-born older people. So ethnic minority individuals with memory problems are uniquely seek medical attention when symptoms appear, mostly because they have a different understanding about dementia, poor knowledge about brain health, memory disease, taboos, stigma, and normalization. If we do not know that dementia is a disease, we think that being stupid is part of normal aging, or we pray and think that this was God's wish for us. That means that we don't even realize that we need help or go to and ask for help. Or how well we can orientate it through the health services, in what level is my health literacy. Okay, we have usually language problems, but all our knowledge about services might also be different. What kind of services or service systems was in my previous home country? Let's start with the public health station, for example. For me, there is still some parts of healthcare system in Finland that are old, or I have to check with friends what does something mean, because in Estonia is completely different healthcare system. And this leads us to an ethnic gap in diagnostics of memory disease. Cultural differences and family roles in healthcare make significant challenges. In some language groups, families typically handle care, leading healthcare systems to assume the same. This is problematic, especially when children are used as interpreters. Miscommunication can easily lead to over- and underdiagnosis of memory disorders when a person's full diversity isn't understood. The home care staff can easily classify individuals from different language groups as demented. But in reality, the person might not have dementia at all if just the staff interpreted other health issues as a memory disorder because of their language barrier. Foreign-born older people need a personal connection to society in their new country of home. They do not engage independently without guidance and often needed, it should be this one, often needed to build a trusting relationship before they feel comfortable participating in society. Volunteers from the same background play a vital role in bridging up this gap. I've experienced that the importance of shared memories from the homeland, common taboos, heroes, and cultural references that foster connection. For example, every Estonian knows who Lennart Meri is. However, many of you might not recognize him. He is the first president of independent Estonia. This knowledge, shared knowledge and memory is a vital point of understanding for us Estonians, something often missing in a new culture. Adapting to a new culture can be especially hard for the elderly, as learning a new language and lifestyle can feel overwhelming. Moving to another country means often losing autonomy, social networks, and a sense of identity to the differences in traditions and values. Those who were independent in their home country may now depend on family support. Educational level is also affecting. An illiterate salesman who once lived an active working life may struggle socially and in a new life situation. Also, economic dependence adds pressure, making it hard to accept support. Even free activities or social and healthcare services might be out of reach if someone cannot afford a bus ticket. The sense of inclusion is making volunteers from the same linguistic and cultural background especially effective. Activities in the mother tongue are essential for building inclusion and avoiding misunderstandings. For example, kiluvõileib. This is a sandwich made with spiced spread. You can see those in the picture. They might not have even name in other languages, and its taste could be unfamiliar for many. Yet for Estonians, it carries deep memories and national significance, traditionally enjoyed on Independence Day. So sharing memories help us understand each other's life journeys and events while exchanging social interaction, which has a significant positive impact on brain health and memory. For foreign-born elderly individuals, the past can be painful, marked by trauma, war, or loss. Similarly, like minority groups, the Roma people in Finland face ongoing discrimination. Volunteers note that discussion memories can be difficult sometimes, but our memories define us, they shape who we are. They cannot be erased. And sometimes it's valuable to find someone with whom we can share them, even if they are painful. The Jututaja method promotes meaningful and regular conversations between a trained volunteer and elderly person from the same background, fostering joy and engagement. This intergenerational activity requires proper training to ensure discussion go behind basic exchanges like, how are you? I'm fine. Originally phone-based, this method proves less effective for foreign-born elderly, leading us to focus on face-to-face and to group interactions. Training volunteers to discuss topics that support brain health reduce loneliness, and encourage participation. Training includes memory triggering activities and cognitive exercises, emphasizing that volunteers should feel satisfied for the conversation to be successful. Building trust takes time and intention. We have an example when volunteers supported an elderly person with a traumatic past. Despite speaking the same language, their backgrounds different. The volunteer approached gently, without pressure, explaining confidentiality and offering simple presence. Over time, trust grew and the elderly person began to open up. The connection brought a sense of belonging and mutual enjoyment. However, it was not easy to volunteer. The other experience was when a volunteer learned how to knit socks and cook dishes from her grandmother. In their conversations, the grandmother shared personal memories like she was smoking in her youth. They built a bond that did not exist before. This made the grandmother feel valued and their time together meaningful. The Jututa method's one development tool is to create meaningful conversations. It encourages engaging discussions that connect the past, present, and future, helping individuals reflect on memories, share current experiences, and even make plans for the future. One fun way to start the conversation is by using the theme sofa. Sofa is neutral. It's not related to crisis, global issues, or daily politics. The sofa is familiar to all ages, languages, and cultural groups, and when discussed, it connects us all. Through life, we have all owned different sofas, and they carry memories. They can remind us of past moments and at the same time open up opportunities to plan new wishes for the future. Questions about past, like when did you get your first sofa? Can you describe it? This helps bringing back memories and activates both short and long-term memory. Questions about the present, like what kind of couch do you have now? Those questions encourage sharing current experiences and emotions. And questions about future, what plan do you have for the sofa in the future? This sparks imagination and positive thinking about what is coming. For elderly with many memory disorders, those questions are used to better activate their cognitive strength and brain health. The goal is to stimulate memory, engage the sentence, and create a connection while also respecting their unique need. The other Jututa methods development tool is MUKES Mukula ruokapiiri. This is like Mukula food circle in Finnish. It's all about bringing people together through food, conversation, and shared experiences. First, we have the Mukula. It's a stress ball crouched by elderly people from the majority group. Making Mukulas give them meaningful way to contribute, creating something good with their hands. We sell these Mukulas at various events. And the great part is buyers can contribute however much they wish. The money raised from selling the Mukulas is used to buy ingredients for a cooking event. Elderly people from different language groups come together and teach others how to cook their traditional dishes. It's a chance to share culture, stories, and recipes and really get to know each other. After the cooking, we all sit down together, enjoy the meal, sing, and just celebrating being in each other's company. It's a wonderful way to reduce loneliness, encourage inclusion, and create connection across generations and cultures. We have the intersectionality field here, a tool that helps us understand how vulnerability arises from multiple factors, particularly the marginalized individuals or groups. An elderly person from foreign background is not defined by just one aspect, like culture. It's important to recognize the intersection of various facts that shape their experience. In this image, you can see two elderly individuals from different language groups. Their experiences, shaped by cultural and personal backgrounds, influence their needs and challenges. When it comes to using services, factors like language skills, health literacy play a crucial role. This field helps us better understand the complex layers of vulnerability, especially for elderly individuals from foreign backgrounds, and allowed us to offer more support. I see that our time is going up. I will quick come to this slide. And time is up, yes. So yeah, for conclusion, there are three things what we need to know or do. We need systematic training for social and healthcare professionals so they cannot lose their experiences when a person from language or cultural minority comes for assistance. And finally, we need some practical tools for professionals, such as suitable memory tests for minorities and tools to reduce loneliness through inclusion. Last but not least, there is our developed news, presenting sensitive memory work in Finland and elsewhere. And our next news will be published after week. So there are highlights also about this webinar. So you are very welcome to join us and read this next publish next week. Thank you all.
Thank you, Siri. Thank you for an amazing presentation. Siri, if you don't mind, could you kindly tell us what is the future for MUKES? What lays in the future, or what do you plan for MUKES in the future?
Yes, thank you. As all NGOs, we depend on different foundations, and next we are waiting for possible funding decisions for a new project, what we did make. And this topic hasn't been addressed from the perspective of foreign-born older people in Finland, and this project is related to death. So we'll see what's going on. We also want to develop those MUKES, mukulas, this idea of future, because it has proven to be a very effective way to engage with the elderly in the field. And our goal is to prioritize these needs and wishes of the foreign-born elderly to help their voices to be heard in Finland.
Okay, thank you, Siri. I think that answers my question. I don't know if we have left enough time for, there was one question that was meant for Alex. I don't know if she's still here with us. And the question was, what further research is needed to help us understand how we can provide appropriate intergenerational activities for foreign-born older people? This was for Alex. I'm also going to type it in the chat section, so Alex can answer it either now or later on, because we don't have much time remaining. We only have 2 minutes.
Well, research, I think we need research on just about everything that everyone's spoken about today. There's so much we still need to know. And I think situations in different countries are changing all the time. in my own country, we are getting a lot of refugees now, and they are, although they're mostly young, they're going to grow older, and people are going to need to think how we deal with them. I think dementia's had a special resonance for us today because an elderly politician's death was announced today, someone who was very, very popular 20 years ago. And people were shocked to find that he had dementia and was in a care home. So I think that started to influence people thinking about dementia again. And especially as people live longer, and as you say, in a strange country, there's a lot we still need to know about how best to meet their needs. But the problem here certainly would be the funding to do research. There are some centres on ageing, but I'm not sure that any of them are looking at these kinds of issues. So thank you for raising them. I don't know if funding is an issue in your countries, but it certainly is here. And finding people who are qualified to do such research. I think that's all I can say at the moment.
Okay. Yes, thank you. That is good enough. Thank you very much, Alex. Yeah, we are right on time with our program for the day. It's 3 o'clock here in Finland. Yeah, special thank you goes to everyone for participating, and I would like to mention Alex, Tina, Erica, Anthony, Joe, Susanna, and Siri for the great presentations and all the wonderful things you've shared with us today. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking your time from your schedules to attend this webinar. And from me, that's all. Thank you very much. As we had mentioned earlier, this is being recorded and all your questions are going to be addressed with time. Thank you.